1. Like most TIFUs, this didn't happen recently but a few years back, around late 2013. But before we start, I want to say one thing. As crazy as this sounds, this actually happened. So as many of you in Jewish families know, a bar mitzvah is a pretty big deal. Being that I myself never got to have a real one as a kid, financial issues, father was a gambler, I was of course flattered when my now ex-wife's sister invited me to help plan her son's bar mitzvah, particularly the entertainment. At first I was absolutely dumbfounded. I had no idea what I was in for, aside for some DJs on Craigslist. I had no leads. Until I found Jonah. So there I was, sitting in a McDonald's parking lot after work like usual, pounding McDoubles in my car. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. Jonah's hit comedy song, It's Too Damn Big. Now I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but at the time I honestly had no idea there was any sexual implications with the song. I was too busy staring at what I thought was going to be the next Eric Clapton. Deep in my mind, I think I knew what it was about, but I was honestly so into the song and wanted to see it at my nephew's big day that my mind rationalized it as his big body, big belly, which I could and still can relate to, unfortunately. After getting in touch with Jonah's agent, I was actually able to make contact with the man himself. I told him it was for a huge party, but he said he didn't do live shows, only acting gigs. Well, I wanted it so bad I ended up offering an offer that he couldn't resist, $2,000. Of course, he asked for details on what I wanted him to do. And of course, I responded with, I want it all. Flash forward a few weeks later, it's showtime, and the party was going great. I got the text from Jonah that he was outside, and I eagerly let him into the lobby. His clothing was quite inconspicuous, just a t-shirt and some track pants. I introduced him to my reluctant family, reassuring them that he was the real deal, and then ushered him behind the curtain where he was going to perform. I gave him a list of songs, most notably Gangnam Style and of course, It's Too Damn Big. I sat next to my nephew and his friends and told him that this guy is great, that he was going to love him. When the beat started blasting for It's Too Damn Big, my heart started going just as fast. I could physically feel my hands shaking. Deep down, I knew I was very attracted to Jonah. But what came through those velvet curtains was a whole different beast. You see, Jonah had torn his track pants off, and was instead wearing his signature skin-tight bike shorts. It was at that moment that I knew exactly what the song was about. I swear I could see in Jonah's eyes the moment he realized this wasn't an actual party, but one full of 13-year-olds. However, it was too late. He pushed through, and if I didn't get the message of the song then, him pointing at his appendage repeatedly during the chorus and air-humping certainly made it clear. It was only about a minute in when the son's dad, my very own brother-in-law, had to step in. He turned off the music and very loudly told Jonah to get the fuck out. Jonah said that he wasn't leaving without his check. I hastily went up on stage with everyone watching me and ushered Jonah backstage. I quickly gave him his check and almost sprinted out the door myself, until my in-laws and my very own, now ex-wife, said, "Stop, you can't run from this." I'll spare you guys the nitty-gritty details, but this wound up being the start of a very nasty divorce. Just wanted to get this off my chest, guys. Don't blow it like I did. 2. This occurred a couple of years ago, but it still makes me cringe just thinking about it. I was fixing up my house after renting it to a bunch of dedicated GHB users and dealers, which had culminated in my house being raided at dawn one day by the Special Operations Group, and the combination of which had resulted in all kinds of damage, from a massive burn on the lounge room floor from someone falling asleep while using a jet lighter, to ceiling damage, from where one of the tenants had installed a pole dancing pole. Believe it or not, this is not my biggest TIFU. The whole saga of that is a TIFU for another day. So I'm at my house, patching and painting and whatnot. After going outside at night several times, I had come to realize the light in the carport was out, making the trip to the bins a bit, well, dark. I was tired, I was dumb. deciding that dragging the ladder out to the driveway was an entirely unnecessary effort that could easily be mitigated by using the much closer and more easily moved wheelie bin to stand on to change the light globe. So I drag it over and line it up with the light. I thought I was all clever and shit because not only had I saved myself an, in hindsight, quite minimal effort, but I'd even remembered to ensure the light was switched off. In the words of Charlie Sheen, winning. With light globe in hand, I clambered atop the wheelie bin and confidently stood to perform the task. Reaching up, I dodged the spider webs, unscrewed the old globe, and with it also in hand, because I had no pockets in what I was wearing, deftly screwed in the replacement globe. I smiled at my handiwork and skill, and had a little "fuck, I'm good" celebratory moment in my head. Then I began to crouch downwards in a kneeling position, so I could swing myself off the top of the bin. That's when it all turned to shit. Fun fact, wheelie bins have wheels. That's why they're called wheelie bins. This feature is ordinarily quite useful, their presence making the transportation of heavy loads of rubbish considerably easier than, I don't know, transferring your garbage to the nature strip one item at a time, and building a bin-shaped rubbish sculpture to dupe the garbo into thinking you have put out your bin. One of their key features is the ease with which the wheels turn. Even when under strain, say a full load of rubbish, or a 70-kilogram human, a wheelie bin will generally sit quite motionless until it's tilted and wheeled away. And it is for these reasons that wise people do not use wheelie bins as substitutes for ladders. My kneeling action was performed just close enough to the edge that my shifting weight tilted the bin towards the back, lifting the non-wheeled side from the ground and setting in motion the wheels. Being in the middle of my driveway, there was nothing to grab hold of to stabilize myself or the bin. The only thing I was grabbing hold of was the dead light globe, still in my hand. I'm not sure how many of you have fallen unexpectedly from a height of around a meter onto solid concrete. In case your powers of deduction are a little rusty, I'll clear up any misconceptions you may have. It hurts. A whole lot. Pointy, bony bits of your body don't want an up-close and personal introduction to concrete at speed. You're welcome to give it a try for yourself, but I can save you the effort and summarize it right now in 3 words. It fucking hurts. In fact, about the only other way to execute this maneuver more painfully is to do it with a light globe in your hand, and smash said globe when you land, piercing and lacerating your hand with countless shards of glass in varying sizes. How do I know this? Yeah, that's right. Through doing it right then and there as I fell from the wheelie bin. And being alone at the house, and it being nighttime, ensured I had to perform the task of removing the tiny little splinters of misery all by myself, without tweezers, as I had none in the house, and single-handed. You know, my other hand being occupied with providing shelter to the dearth of glass slivers generated by the inarguably shattered light globe. After several pain-filled hours of painstaking plucking of glass fragments, using nothing but my fingernails, I managed to extract 99% of the offending foreign bodies and retire to my floor bed, thoroughly ensconced in my self-inflicted shroud of disappointment, embarrassment, stupidity, and residual pain, knowing I had a day of painting to look forward to tomorrow. And the undoubtedly supreme TIFU factor in all of this? This was the second time using a wheelie bin for a ladder had ended badly for me. 2 for 2. Impromptu wheelie bin ladders? Not even once. And for the love of all that is holy, definitely not twice. 3. This FU happened about 3 months ago, and it's been a long time coming. A little background about me. I'm a college student, and during last winter, I often went back to my old nearby high school to assist coach the freshman kids in debate. In of itself, it wasn't that bad. The pay was good, the kids were pretty receptive and happy to see me, and despite the commute, I was willing to stand the time to get there. This is a key part that fits in later. I used my dad's old car when at school to get around, but on that particular day, I was using my mom's white Chevrolet because my original one needed repairs. The FU happens when one weekend the debate team is headed out to the state tournament, and the head coach is asking me to be there earlier than usual. I packed up all my things and was planning on driving a friend who had volunteered to judge the tournament. And in order to do that, I had to get up at around 5 in the morning to make it in time. That day, I remember there had been a big snowstorm the night before. So many of the cars were still covered in snow, it was especially difficult to make out a lot of features for each car. I was in a rush, so at the time, I didn't think much of it. My friend and I scout out for my mom's white car, and we find it in one of the side streets where I usually park, with a gigantic penis embedded onto the front windshield. Now, the penis wasn't just patted down onto the windshield. It was completely and utterly frozen, so I couldn't just brush it off. It took up the entire windshield. Balls, shaft, and everything. To make the sight even more heart-wrenching, 2 of the front wheels had various screws loose, and the wheel cover on the front right wheel was missing entirely. At first I was thinking that I'd deal with it later because I was already starting to run late. There was clearly someone who was harassing me somehow, and I'd deal with it later. I put my keys into the side door, as it's one of the older cars where it's not electronically unlocked, and turn the key, but alas, nothing happens. Then I really start to panic. I did a quick search online and found that the lock for the car may have been frozen. So my friend suggests he go back inside and get a lighter to defrost the lock. He starts running up into the college apartments, and I take off my shoes and start scraping the penis off the windshield like a maniac. I could see the ice scraper in the backseat of the car, but of course it was impossible for me to get it at the moment. The morning air was well below freezing, but I managed to pull out my phone to various texts from my head coach asking where I was, and I had to tearfully respond that I might not be able to make it. It was an important tournament, and I couldn't afford to miss it. When my friend came back with the lighter and our effort proved to be futile, I ran to the nearest convenience store and purchased a can of WD-40, which apparently was supposed to help defrost locks as well. And that too failed epically. At that point, after realizing that taking an Uber to the event or calling a friend was unfeasible, I actually thought about breaking into it by breaking the window. Irrational? Yeah. But I was late and I figured that at some point later, I could blame whoever had drawn the penis and took the wheel cover. As I leaned in to examine what to do when the glass shattered, I took special notice of the driving wheel of the car. I found the symbol for Ford. Fucking Ford. My car is a Chevrolet. I ended up late to the tournament, but was still able to offer advice to the kids. I couldn't get over the fact that I had essentially tried to break into someone else's car, and I made up a random excuse to the head coach, because I was too embarrassed to say the truth. 4. Just got back from the date. I've had my bad share of Tinder dates. Girl started crying while we were making out, because she missed her ex-boyfriend. Another girl yelled at me for touching her boob while making out because she only wanted something casual. But those are different stories. So I've always made sure to screen a match before we meet in person to make sure that she's a normal functioning human. Today I ignored every sign and still went on the date anyway. So I matched with this girl about 2 to 3 weeks ago. I'm 23, she's 26. She's kinda weird and somewhat attractive, but she was really interested in me, so I decided to give it a chance. We were very different, so talking slowed down and we eventually stopped talking. I hadn't had action in a while, so out of depression, I hit her up this morning and asked if she's down to meet. She says we can chill at her house and watch a movie, and we set the date. Score. I drive over and text her that I'm 5 minutes away. She says I can park in the wooded area across the street. A bit weird, but I think nothing of it. So I reach her block, and right across the street, there is a dark wooded area with a roundabout and a hooded figure waving at me. Immediately fearing the worst, I speed past the figure and found it slowly jogging in my direction from the rear view. Then I realized that it might actually be her, so I reverse, and lo and behold, my Tinder date. She looks like in her pictures, maybe looked a bit older, but everything checked out. We laugh off the situation and she subtly hints that she couldn't keep up because of her shitty lungs. I let this slide and don't ask questions. So she asks if I can take her to the liquor store to get wine, and if we can pick up a movie from Redbox at CVS. We go to CVS, pick up Baywatch, and pick up some wine, then head back to her place for the action. When we get to her place, she hurriedly takes off her seatbelt and gets out of the car. I ask her what's wrong, and she says she always has to have a smoke before she enters the house. I'm very against smoking, especially with someone whose tongue is probably gonna be down my throat in about half an hour, but I decide to ignore it. Now, for some reason, she was taking me in through the garage instead of the front door. She explained that she actually lived with her dad, grandma, and grandpa, but they wouldn't disturb us. I brush it off and she leads me to her room. We pop in Baywatch, and she opens up the wine and starts drinking. I don't drink. Now, I usually won't make a move until the girl is done drinking as to not disturb, but she wouldn't stop drinking. Eventually, she finished the entire bottle. When she was done, she decided to go grab some snacks, and brought some Cheetos Puffs. Great, food that sticks to your fingers. She downs half the bag. To my disgust and horror, she starts making out with me after. Now, I've learned that everyone has a different style of making out, but hers was unlike anything I have ever experienced before. Immediately as we start, she licks my lips from top to bottom and doesn't kiss, and then stops to breathe in my face every 5 seconds, leaving me to deal with a cigarette Cheetos wine conglomerate that I can only describe to you as smelling like the undercarriage of an old man who just ran 5K. This goes on for 5 minutes. I decide to gut it out. We relax for a bit, and she keeps saying how she doesn't want to give me a blowjob because she doesn't want to corrupt me, and that if she gives me a blowjob she will ruin all other blowjobs. I didn't even ask for a blowjob. At this point I have shut myself off to the outside world and numbed my senses, and I'm just nodding along and staring at the TV screen. She gets up and says she wants to get into something more comfortable, and goes into the bathroom. I hear the shower going off, and am legitimately confused. About 2 minutes later, I hear her moaning in the shower. Then she starts singing. I've been texting my friend throughout this date, and she's laughing her ass off at me because I always get myself into these situations, and she tells me to leave because something is seriously wrong with this girl. I am about to leave when she comes out of the shower. She walks up to me and makes out with me for a bit, and I realize that she does not smell good at all. I ask if I can use the bathroom and she says sure. Just be careful because they lock the cat in there after 7. I go into the bathroom and meet the cat. I love cats, so I decide to squat down and try to pet it, but it hisses at me and raises its paw for me to stay the fuck away. I slowly back away and go to the toilet. As I'm undoing my pants, I notice a small roach crawling its way from under the toilet to the closet. Cat is still hissing, and I am staring at kitty and roach back and forth, while a constant stream of terror-filled urine enters the toilet bowl. I go to wash my hands and realize there is no soap in the bathroom. So the girl just made out with me and touched my face without washing her hands. I get out of the bathroom, and the girl is on the phone shouting. She sees me and mutes the phone, apologizing and saying that it's her ex-boyfriend, who now has a new girlfriend, who calls every time he is drunk to tell her he wants to kill himself. Oh, I tell her, I have to get home, and she obliges. We go upstairs and find her grandpa and dad are sitting on the couch together. They ask if I was one of her druggy friends that sells OxyContin. I tell them I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. I leave the house and she tells me that she had a great time and would love to do it again. I nod. Now gonna take a shower for a bit. I've since deleted the app. Fuck Tinder. Edit. I know it's not Tinder's fault, it's mine. Please stop telling me how much of an idiot I am. I already know. 5. So this was a couple of months ago, but it just came up in conversation again, so I figured I would share. My partner and I have been together for 8 years, and we live together, so naturally we have our habits that we have fallen into over time. One of those habits is going to our favorite Japanese restaurant almost every week, and getting takeout and then eating it at the coffee table sitting on the floor. We are young and live in a small apartment, so eating on the floor is just what we do. We don't even have a proper dining table, but we never have company, so it wasn't a big deal. However, my partner's brother, we'll call him Jerry, was in town and had come to spend the day with him while I was at work. Jerry was planning to propose to his girlfriend when he got back home to Mississippi, so my partner, we'll call him Dan, was helping him find a ring. They had been in and out of the house all day, and when I got home around 5, Jerry was complaining that he was still hungry. Normally Dan and I don't eat till 8 or 9, but we figured alright, we will get dinner early and have a snack later or something. So I asked Jerry if he likes Japanese food, and he says yes, and we order. They go out to check one more jewelry store while I'm picking up the food, and we all meet back at our apartment. I should mention that Jerry and Dan are both very tall. Jerry is 6'4" and Dan is 6'2". I'm only 5'3" on a good day, so I let them pick their spots on the floor first, so they can have comfortable leg room. I went up sitting across from them with my legs crisscrossed in an odd position to give them space. A little bit cramped, but I make do. So I set out all the food containers and put out silverware. Jerry had ordered salmon teriyaki and Dan ordered hibachi steak, and I ordered a sushi entree. I got them some sushi rolls that didn't have raw fish in them, and this restaurant was really nice and gave us a little plastic container of soy sauce. Since I was the only one eating raw sushi, I figured I would let them have the container. I just poured out a little of the soy sauce onto the lid of my container and dipped my fish there. Everyone is enjoying their food and we are laughing and having a good time. I was asking how the ring shopping was going and trying to very subtly drop hints to Dan about our future and the types of rings I like. While I was engulfed in conversation, I didn't notice that I had been inching the lid of my container filled with soy sauce closer and closer to the edge of the coffee table. I like to talk with my hands, and at some point, I got overexcited about something and threw my hands up over my head to make a point. We all start laughing, and I proceeded to drop my hands back into my lap. Not noticing that in my effort to sit more comfortably, I moved closer to the table. At this point, my hand caught the edge of the container lid with my soy sauce in it, and sent the salty liquid flying over my shirt and into my face. More specifically, right into my eye. The burning sensation that I felt was like nothing else. It hurt, obviously, but I wanted to claw my eye out because it felt so hot. I've never actually had anything happen to my eyes before, and I've always had pretty good sight, so I was worried I could have done some actual damage. I immediately start freaking out and grab my face, and then try to carefully make sure I don't also send my food onto the floor while I get up and run to the bathroom to rinse my eye. Dan follows close behind me to make sure I'm okay, and I send him to bring me a bottle of water and some eye drops. So there I am, standing in my bathroom in my bra, pouring water in my eye, while my concerned partner watches trying his hardest not to laugh. Eventually I flush my eye and use a couple of eye drops to rebalance the pH, put on a clean shirt and walk back out into the living room to find Jerry still sitting there finishing his meal. We all have a good laugh about it and continue our night. My eye felt perpetually dry for a couple of days afterwards, but I'm happy to report that months later my eye is perfectly fine, and I learned my lesson and bought little metal cups to pour my soy sauce in. And next time Jerry comes over, we're having pizza. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 66. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. That story about the car with the snow there, it kind of gave me shudders, because we've got more snow on the way today. We've had a minor little blizzard. So far it doesn't seem to be lying too much, but I suspect we might get more before the weekend's over. So that'll be fun. Okay, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.